Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Well, good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Sorry, you guys. Go away. I don't want to remove myself from the stage. How did I do that? Sorry about that. Usually, I've got a better transition. Sorry. I was like, wait a minute. I've transitioned before. But good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining me here for this Mighty Men Thursday. So today we're going to start out with our trending topics on X. And the first one is apparently the DOJ. They are going to reopen, I want to say, the case regarding the 2020 election, and specifically within Georgia. And so I wanted to pull up a few videos. Not going to play the entire video because this one's 11 minutes, but I want to play enough of it just to give us a little bit of background in what we're dealing with. So there was never a water main break at the Georgia State Farm Arena during the 2020 election. It was a diversion tactic to commit fraud, but there was some of the most compelling election fraud ever caught on video. So let's see what they caught.
Two ballots side by side. One of them is marked for Jason Shaw. It's got a little squiggle mark next to it. You can see it's got the identical mark on the second one. And the ballot image is stored up here on the top left. So this one over here is scanner 5162. That's scanner number 3. Fax number 235. Image number 19. And that matches 234, image 59. So you have the same ballot counted twice in the images and counted in the audit. How that's possible, I don't know. Here's one of the next ones. All right, so same fax number 234, image number 2, and 235, image number 61. Republican, 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 all the way down to the point where this little spot up in Fannie Willis matches this one over here. There's no question that that ballot was counted twice.
Footage obtained by Voter GA appears to show large numbers of ballots being scanned multiple times. Pay attention in the tape we're showing you to the woman wearing yellow at the desk. According to Voter GA, she slides ballots into a scanning machine, removes the ballots, and then reinserts the same ballots. This happens multiple times.
What occurred at the State Farm Arena that night, and I watched that video, every minute of it, should shock the conscience of every red-blooded Georgian, no matter your political persuasion. I've asked Bob, if you're posting, Bob posting here at the video, I want to pull it up and I want to show you, for those that may not have taken the time to watch this video, I want to show you what occurred there that night that should shock the conscience of every Georgian. Bob, if you would. All right. So this, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the time. That's 11:05 p.m. This is after everyone was told to go home because there was a major water main break. That was false. There was no water main break at all. There was a toilet leak about 16 or 18 hours earlier in the day, leaking from the ceiling from a suite above. It was cleaned up. It had no impact on this election. The water main break pronouncement was obviously made to clear the room of all poll watchers and the media. So they were told that night that the vote count would be suspended because the water main break, and that they would resume the vote count the next morning.
Okay, like I said, this is an 11-minute video. I will leave the link, but I just wanted to give people a little bit of background as to why the DOJ is going back, because they want to question the poll workers now. So I don't know if they're going to question these two individuals because they've already been through litigation, right? And actually won a defamation suit. So it's going to be interesting to find out
a real wash
what
of an election for
happened
Biden there.
next. So now we've got CNN, and they are reporting on what's happening. So without evidence, it's immediately trotted out the same without evidence. There is lots of evidence, and that's why I played that initial video to show that they were like, okay, they're scanning the ballots multiple times. Why is that? And I think those are some of the questions are going to be asked as to the protocol, because even the State Board of Elections here in Georgia is still asking the questions of Fulton County right now about the 2020 election. And it even affected the 2024 election. So Fulton County has a problem, and that's the issue. And that's the crux of the matter. We don't want to continue to go through elections in this state with a city and a county that has a problem like the one that they have.
But Trump really does want to continue to say that the 2020 election was rigged. And now the Justice Department, they're going after thousands of names and addresses of these 2020 election workers. At a hearing last week, that was where the judge was hearing about why the Justice Department actually may want these things. This election happened 6 years ago. That's out of the time frame where the Justice Department could bring voting related federal criminal charges if they even would get to that point with a grand jury and a prosecutor there. His name is Will McComb. He said, "We are not sure what charges can be brought." And then he told the judge, "We don't know what they will tell us as far as what happened or what improprieties may or may not have happened in the 2020 election, and whether that is a continuing situation in this current election cycle or in the next election cycles for the Fulton County Board." But what the Justice Department is also saying is they just want to go out, knock on doors, potentially interview these ballot workers and poll workers. The judge, though, is looking at this. Is it a fishing expedition? And is this way too broad of a request? We're waiting to see what happens.
It's actually not, because they weren't questioned the first time. Now, had they been questioned the first time, then it would have been more of a, okay, we can't do anything. But they were protected. They weren't questioned during the initial debacle. And that's what I'm going to call it. I'll call it a debacle. It's really sad what happened here in Georgia. Now, the next one I wanted to get to is this. I came across this and I was like, okay, I got to go over this. So apparently, God Talk is so foreign to MS Now, Katie Tur. What about this passage from Mike Johnson declaring that our rights do not derive from government? They come from you, our Creator, our Heavenly Father. Is this him putting God over the Declaration of Independence? This is what she said. McKay Coppins, somebody who responded, says, I actually think that that idea is not wholly uncommon. I mean, the idea that we have certain inalienable rights that come from God can be read in a fairly benign way, which is basically what we have innate human rights that our Constitution and our government, our democratic government, are meant to codify, right? That idea is not totally abnormal. So here's the clip.
What about this passage from Mike Johnson declaring that our rights do not derive from government? They come from you, our Creator, and Heavenly Father. Is this him putting God over the Declaration of Independence? Okay.
Well, I actually think that idea is not wholly uncommon. I mean, the idea that we have certain inalienable rights that come from God can be read in a fairly benign way, which is basically that we have innate human rights that our Constitution and our government, our democratic government, are meant to codify, right? That idea is not totally abnormal. I think that the thing that might alarm some people is some of the rhetoric that we heard at this rally that we are in a spiritual battle, right? That the forces of good and evil are at work here, and that partisan politics is injected directly into the spiritual biblical rhetoric. We have heard that for the last couple of years. It's been ratcheted up more and more, especially since Donald Trump lost in 2020. And it can lead to some pretty dangerous places if it's not kept in check.
Yeah. And I understand what they're saying with that, because you don't want to get into a theocracy, right? But I did want to read this before we see the response from Mike Johnson, because all he did was read from the Declaration of Independence. And it does say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable, meaning that you cannot tell people what to do, how to live, right? There are certain rights that we just have being human. Some of us, right? Because I'm still on that, right? We live in a country. Hey, Spud, thanks for joining this morning. We live in a country where it says all men are created equal, and yet we have civil rights for people because they weren't accepted as human. Now, obviously, that was prior. No, that was after. No, that was after 1776 and during 1776 and prior to 1776. So prior to the Constitution being codified, right? People were not being treated as human beings. And then once it was codified, they still weren't being treated as human beings. And then we had to create civil rights so they would be treated as human beings, instead of saying, hey, these individuals have the same rights that it says in our Declaration of Independence. Again, we need to really have an honest conversation about that. Really, really honest. But I thought it was really sad that this reporter did not understand the Declaration of Independence. It says what it says. But what I really like, what it does continue to say, because people kind of stop right there. And what I like, what it says, is that in here, it says, let me see, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations going around, right, pursuing invariably the same object and license and designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Yes. And such is now the necessary which constrains them to alter the former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. But what I meant to read prior to that was prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light of transit causes, and accordingly all experience therein while evils are sufferable. Where is the part that I was looking for? Right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. So we're the governed, and we are basically giving them consent to be in government, right? We're saying this is okay. It's a mutual conversation. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So basically, when they get out of control, we have the absolute right to rein them in. And I think that's happening. There are certain people that lost their primaries. They may not get elected. But this is a reminder to those in government who think they just rule over us. You don't have rule, you serve us. We've given consent under this declaration. And so a lot of times when people are like, yeah, we need to throw this out, don't do that. We have protections with this document. Why do you think people are rushing to get over here? They're not killing themselves to get over here for nothing. But my problem is when they get over here, they bring them with them. Yeah, you bring that dictator mentality with you. So it's for me, you can go back to the country where there's dictatorship and live there and fix it. By the way, you can go home. But if you are not about upholding the laws of this country, you can go. But again, let's check out this response from Speaker Mike Johnson.
We had the Rededicate 250 event on the National Mall. It was really an extraordinary thing. Many thousands of Americans came out to participate in that. An historic event. It was a welcome opportunity to recommit ourselves to the cause that our founders fought and died for 250 years ago. And sadly, too many young Americans are no longer taught the moral and religious foundations of our extraordinary country. And that is the source of our greatness, the reason we became the most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent nation in the history of the world. But evidently, some in the mainstream media missed all that history lesson as well. And I just wanted to comment, it was brought to my attention yesterday that MS Now, formerly MSNBC, mocked me in a big segment they had. And the reason they mocked me was because in my remarks, I led the prayer of rededication on the mall. I stated the self-evident truth that our rights do not derive from government, they derive from our Creator. And they had this entire segment about how ridiculous that was and what a crazy notion, and isn't Johnson such a crazy fundamentalist, et cetera. The best part is I was literally quoting from the Declaration of Independence. So let me take this opportunity. I want to just direct my friends in the mainstream media to the second paragraph of our nation's birth certificate, the Declaration, which remains the most foundational and consequential sentence in all of American history. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among those the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It shouldn't be too much to ask that the people who talk about politics on TV, on a network that millions of Americans tune into, have a basic understanding of America's political foundations. I hope this serves as a friendly reminder to every American that the best civic education is not from your favorite TV anchor or late night host, okay? It comes from our founding documents. You ought to go read the Declaration and the Constitution and the Federalist Papers and the other foundational texts that shape and guide our country. And as we approach the 250th birthday of the greatest nation in history, I encourage all of us to revisit those founding documents. It's really important. It's really important. The founders believed that in order to keep a constitutional republic, to maintain the republic, you had to have an informed and engaged electorate, the people, a government of, by, and for the people ourselves. The people have to be engaged. They have to know basic civics. They got to know their foundations. And quite clearly, we need that review. At least some in the media do. Okay.
Yeah, and see, they got rid of civics a long time ago for a reason, because they were, there are people who wanted to indoctrinate children and are. And now those children are adults. And it's interesting because those children are turning on the very people that created them. And in my opinion, they're a mob, right? You've created this mob of people, and then you wonder why they're turning on you. Because they started reading and they feel cheated because everything that they should have learned while they were in school so their lives could be better once they graduated, didn't learn any of that because it was more important for you to indoctrinate them. Telling you, you're going to be 80 one day and you need a bedpan and no one's going to know what to do for you because they don't know how to read. You're going to need a doctor one day. And because our education system has fallen so far behind, you're not going to have proper care. Yeah. You want to control people. You don't want them educated. And then you're going to wonder what happens next. It's very interesting. Very interesting. But with that, let's get to another article I came across. Apparently, Mandani, people are calling for him to leave. He hasn't been there 6 months. Like, we're not in June yet. Like, I know we're close to June. He just got there. And they're already calling for him to step down.
This week, Mamdani released a pro-Palestinian video that many called anti-Semitic propaganda. He then backed a bill targeting certain Jewish charities. Zoran Mamdani is the first mayor to refuse to participate in the annual Israel Day parade coming up this Sunday. Well, just show us who you are. Just tell us who you are. You just want the truth about the guy. He's showing you. Last night, hundreds of Jewish people protested outside the mayor's official residence for the first time. Brooks Group End Jew Hatred organized this rally. Christians and some moderate Muslims joined in. Organizers say the mayor has failed to address, quote, rising radicalization and anti-American extremism in the city. They want him out of office.
Mayor Mamdani promised this city free buses. Well, Zoran, the only thing that's been free in this city is the freedom for anti-Semites to terrorize Jewish New Yorkers.
Bigotry being waged on the Jewish community in the city of New York. We are not going to stand for that.
This mayor likes to pretend that there is a difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. I'm sorry, if you hate 90% of Jews, you are a bigot, Zoran!
Remove Mamdani! Remove Mamdani! Remove Mamdani!
All I'm saying is, he hasn't even made a year. He hasn't even made a real full 6 months. And you're already calling for him to be. I don't know where this goes from here, but I'm like, wow, my goodness. Now, this next one is brought to you by Lori Daniel Favors, and she brought up an interesting point where Berkeley is now decided that they are not going to have AI accessible for their students to use as far as a learning tool.
Everything else is paper and pencil. maybe a calculator, a TS, whatever them T tech. Y'all remember them calculators we had to get in high school? Maybe that. But everything else was paper and pencil. And that's when I began realizing that, well, I knew it, but I realized it in real time. The wealthy are not educating their children like we educate ours. Not at all, not at all. And now we're seeing entire bans on artificial intelligence at the so-called wealthier, upper crusty kind of schools. Berkeley Law School is one such school. We're moving beyond the K through 12 and the day school experience to looking at the collegiate experience. And at the higher education experience where we're talking about law school. So you've already gone through your K through 12, you've gone through college, and now you're at law school. They're banning AI entirely at some of the more elite law schools. And then we got Fisk University that's bringing a whole ass data surveillance center onto its campus. Make it make sense, but take a listen to this clip where she explains it in more detail. Let's hear it.
UC Berkeley School of Law, one of the top law schools in the country, has just told students they cannot use AI even to brainstorm their homework. The school has reportedly banned students from using AI to conceptualize, outline, draft, or revise academic work. This move highlights a growing divide in higher education when it comes to AI. Some universities are racing to teach AI, while at the same time some professors are trying to prevent students from using AI to think. Law schools are sensitive to this subject because they view legal analysis as a professional skill that needs to be developed internally and not something merely assembled from outputs. At UC Berkeley, a professor said that they were seeing questionable legal reasoning, and they were seeing assignments that appeared to be generated through AI. The professor also said that students were presenting AI-generated legal solutions as their own thinking, and he called it, actually, plagiarism. What's happening at UC Berkeley may be replicated at other schools, so it's important to pay attention to what's going on. There are things...
Yeah. And when my husband actually shared this one with me, here's my take on that. The colleges that are allowing AI, they're allowing it because they don't want thinkers. Berkeley is doing the best thing for those students because, see, when you're an attorney, you have to have something called judgment, sound judgment, with whether you are a legal defender or whether you're a prosecutor, no matter where you're at in law, you need to know how to research. You need to know what your paralegal is responsible for, what you're responsible for, how to, present yourself in court before a judge. The legal research that attorneys do have to partake in or participate in, and the judgment that comes along with that, AI can't teach you that. And the more AI is used as a learning tool, right? I'm not saying that AI isn't useful if you need to aggregate information, because that's what I use it for. But see, if the lights went off tomorrow, I know how to run a cash register manually. Okay. I know how to keep a ledger manually. I know how to run a credit card manually. And I know how to get things done manually without any of it. And that's what our children have lost. So the Berkeleys of the world, and trust me, there's going to be a lot more upper crust schools, as they like to call them, that are going to be following suit, because these individuals, if we, again, want them to be lawyers and doctors and all of this, they have to know how to use sound judgment and not rely on a machine to tell them what to do. It's very interesting how those, conversations kind of flowed, right? Our babies aren't learning the Declaration of Independence. They're not learning any civics, right? But they can go onto a tablet or a computer. And a lot of people don't know Steve Jobs, and like just at the end of that conversation of what Lori Daniel was saying, people that are at a certain, I should say, status, their children aren't allowed to use cell phones and tablets and all of these other things that actually destroy the mind's capacity to learn. They just don't allow them to use it, because what it does, it creates a dopamine response in the brain. And like a drug, the brain wants more and more and more and more and more. And it does not know how to let go of that hit. I mean, really try it. Try it for yourself. Just set your phone away and just say, okay, I'm not going to get my phone. I'm not going to touch it. You will go through a type of withdrawal where you want to be on this machine. So it's not the withdrawal with AI that the colleges are looking at. It's the capacity of their students actually learning and not relying on a machine to do their homework. So with that, we will end the broadcast today. We will be back tomorrow for Prayer with Fridays. And thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, I want you guys to stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.